Good morning, children. Let's discuss the first chapter of your textbook Hornbill, The Portrait of a Lady by Khushwant Singh today.
Yes, most of the students say that I'm audible. I'm audible, so I should be audible. You are not audible, and I'm not happy with this thing today. But I would change the settings after some time. Let me do some part of this chapter, then I'm going to change the settings again. Okay, I'll try and fix this problem. Fine. So. Ankit Toma, you can check your settings. Then problem is in your device also. Okay, so it's a loving tribute. It is a loving tribute from a grandson to his grandmother. Okay, so he's describing about his grandmother. Khushwant Singh is describing about his grandmother in this chapter. Okay, so he's here describing. Ma'am is not presenting. No, I'm not presenting anything. I'm not sharing anything. I'm not sharing anything right now. I'm just speaking up for you. I would be sharing after some time. Okay, so he gives a very beautiful picture of human relationship in a joint family. Joint family system is nowadays it is disintegrating, and we have more nuclear families coming up. But he's describing about his emotional bond, the bond that he shared with his grandmother when he used to live with her in the village, and how that friendship changed and what turning point came into their lives and into their friendship. This all we would be reading in this chapter. Whatever you want to ask me at any point of time, you can just put up a question in the chat box, because as I've told you, I'm not able to, your voice is not audible to me today. I don't know why. Okay, so he says, my grandmother, I'm just speaking up, I'm not presenting, I'm just speaking up whatever I read earlier. He says, my grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years. He says, I had known her for the last 20 years, but I had seen her like that only. There was no change in my grandmother in her appearance. She had been looking the same for the last 20 years. People said that she had once been young, people had said that she had once been pretty, and had even had a husband. But that was hard to believe. Why was it hard to believe for Khushwant Singh? That she had once been young, that she had once been... There's no need to speak up, children, because I'm not able to hear you. Sarabjot says because he... complete the sentence. Why was it hard? Because she had always, because he had always seen her like that only. Okay, he had always, Rahul Singh, she was very old, okay, but then the answer to this would be because he had always seen her. Yes, because Khushwant Singh never saw his grandmother young. Very good. Because she always, yes. So all of you are responding. Always seen her in old age. He's seen her old and wrinkled because he had seen his grandmother very old only. So that was yes. Okay, I've got it. And most of you are giving the correct answer because he had always seen her like that only. So he says, my grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece. What is a mantelpiece, students? What's a mantelpiece? It's a structure of wood, Shubhangi says. Anything else? Yes, it's a structure of wood, but what is it exactly? Shelf. Yes, it's like a shelf above the fireplace that we used to have, you know, in the previous times. Oh, it's yes, it's a place above the fireplace. It's like a shelf wherein you can. Very good, very good. It's not a table, but it's like a shelf over the fireplace, which is in the drawing rooms, which used to be in the drawing rooms of most of the houses. Okay, so he says, my grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100. He looked so old. He looked as if he was 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. Why did he say that? Why did Khushwant Singh make such a statement that his grandfather didn't look the sort of person who would have a wife or children? He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. Yes, again the same answer, because yes, because sarcastically he made the statement because he looked so old always, because he had never seen his grandfather otherwise. But from the portrait it appeared he looked so old that it appeared that such sort of a person could only have grandchildren. Okay, and according to Khushwant Singh, Devjot Kaur, yes, you are very right, but this, he made this statement sarcastically, because according to him, like somebody from the class had also answered, because according to Khushwant Singh, he was a child at that point of time, and according to him, only young people get married. Okay, so the grandfather was very old, so for him the concept of grandfather, yes, very good, unnecessary, because it was hard for him to picture him as a young man with wife and children, and he had seen his grandparents only in their old age, so that is why he made such a statement. Okay, so then he says, as for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. Yes, the thought was almost revolting. What do you mean by this? The thought was almost revolting. Yes, it was difficult for him to believe. The thought was disgusting, because he could never imagine his grandmother young. It was unbelievable, it was disgusting, it was hard to believe. Yes, and why? Because he had always seen her old. She often told us of the games he used to play as a child. That seemed quite absurd. Absurd means, what is absurd? Yes, because he had illogical and funny, because he had always seen his grandmother old. So his grandmother, imagining his grandmother playing like a child, this thought seemed very illogical, weird and ridiculous to him, and undignified on her part, and we treated it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. We also took these stories like the tales that she told, like the old stories, having some morals and all. She had always been short, and she had always been fat. Okay, she had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. It was a crisscross of wrinkles. She had a wrinkled face. She had wrinkles all over her face. No, we were certain she had always been, as we had known her, old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older. She looked so old, we could not imagine her growing older than that, and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. What is the difference between these two? He says she could never have been pretty, but she was always, and she had always been very, very beautiful. Yes, Devjot says pretty means attractive to eyes, and what does beautiful mean then? Yes, very good. Beautiful by heart, beautiful, pleasant to mind, beautiful from soul. Yes, very good. Her soul was beautiful. She radiated. There was some inner beauty that she had, and that inner beauty radiated on her face. Okay, so that is what he means to say, that she had never been pretty, but she was always. On her waist to balance a stoop, and the other telling the beads of her rosary. So she hobbled about. What do you mean by hobbling? What is hobbled? What is hobbled? It says hobbled about the house. What is hobbled? Yes, walked in an awkward way, Mehak. Yes, walked with slightly with difficulty. Yes, walked with difficulty, like a lame person. So she hobbled. She was very old, so she could not walk straight. So she hobbled. She walked with a slight limp about the house in spotless white. She used to wear white clothes always, and her clothes never had even a speck of dirt on them. Okay, and with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop. She was slightly bent because of the age. She was slightly bent, and one hand was on her waist. Okay, she was just trying to balance herself, and the other hand was busy telling the beads of her rosary. So she was always busy praying, counting the beads of her rosary. Her silver locks were scattered. Yes, she had stoop in her back. Yes, Pavitra. So her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face. Her white hair, silver locks, her white silver hair, they were scattered over her pale, puckered face. What do you mean by puckered? Have you heard of this term? Yes. Yes, wrinkled face. So, over her pale and wrinkled face, her locks was scattered here and there, and her lips constantly moved in inaudible. She would just keep on praying throughout the air. Her lips would constantly keep on moving. It was not just she wanted to show to the other people that she was praying, but she was doing it, and the prayers were inaudible. Yes, she was beautiful. She was just murmuring the prayers, as somebody said in the class. Yes, it was a silent kind of a prayer. Very good. And yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. What do you mean by an expanse? I told you to infer the meanings. He says, Aryan says, refers to the calm, peaceful and serene character. Yes, very good. Serenity means calmness only, peace. There was peace spread all over her. She was an epitome, like she was an epitome of peace. She was an epitome of contentment. Okay, and also you can also get another meaning of this, age-wise also. Age-wise also you can say that she was in the winter of her life. Okay. Got it? The winter landscapes can be interpreted like that. Calm, peaceful and serene. Yes, very good. So then he says, my grandmother and I were very good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. Who were constantly together? Who were constantly together? Grandmother and Khushwant Singh. And yes, very good. And she used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song. What is monotonous? What is monotonous? Yes, unchanging. Tushita says unchanging. At one time it becomes boring also, but every day she would, because every day she would do the same thing. She would repeat her prayers in the same manner. Here it is not boring for the author. It is not boring for the grandmother, but it is just like one tone being repeated every day. While she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. Why would she just repeat it every day? Why would she repeat it every day? Because she wanted her grandson. She wanted her grandson to remember it. It is not tedious. It is not tedious, Sahaj. She wanted her grandson to remember it. She wanted said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song while she bathed and while she dressed me in the hope that I loved her, in the hope that I would listen and I would get to know it by heart. So she wanted, why would she just sing it every day? Because she wanted her grandson to remember, to learn that song, to remember it, to learn it. I listened. He says, I would listen, but not because I loved her voice, but never bothered to learn it. He said, I would listen the prayer, the monotonous sing song, because I just loved her melodious voice, but I never cared about learning it by heart. Then she would fetch me my wooden slate, which she had already washed and which she had already plastered with yellow chalk. Or then she would fetch all the things that I would require in school. She would also get a tiny earthen ink pot and a red pen, tie them all in a bundle, and then she would hand it to me. Okay, she would make a bundle of all the things that I would require, the slate, the pens, the earthen ink pot and everything, and then she would hand over the bundle to me. After a breakfast of a thick, Devra says, please present the screen. So after a breakfast of a thick stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. So she was very kind. She would always think about the dogs. She wanted to feed them. So she would carry several chapatis for the dogs as well. And she would also give me a breakfast that consisted of a thick stale chapati, because it is stale chapatis are thought to be good for digestion. okay, with a little butter and sugar spread on it, and then she would carry the rest of the stale chapatis for the dogs. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer, while okay, the priest who was there, he would teach us the alphabet and he would teach us the morning prayer, while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda singing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. Chorus, everybody knows what is a chorus. They would sing together, okay, they would repeat the alphabet together. And what would the grandmother do? She would sit inside reading the scriptures. Scriptures means holy books, okay. And when we had both finished, okay, when the grandmother had finished her praying and reading the scriptures and I had finished with my school work, we would walk back together. This time the village dogs would meet us at the temple door and they followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis that we threw to them. So my grandmother would carry so many chapatis for the village dogs and they would just follow us, and we would be throwing those chapatis to them, and they would be so happy, and they would also be seen fighting for the chapatis. Got it? Next. When my parents, there's a line that is missing at the top. I'm just reading it out from the book. Okay, when my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point. So you need to tell me now, what was the turning point? Just hold on. Yes, what was the turning point? Yes, Rajiv says when the author and grandmother, no, they didn't get separate. No, they were not separated. Both of them were called. Both of them. It is not. We're not talking about the separation yet. They had to shift to the city because the parents were well settled now, and they called both of them. Okay, they called both of them to the city, and that was a turning point in our friendship. Why was it a turning point? I'll just tell you why was it a turning point. It was a turning point. Why? The reason is given here. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer, just hold on. Yes, the turning point came because although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. Earlier on, she used to drop him to school. She would also accompany him to school actually, but now she no longer came to school, went to school with him. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus, and there were no dogs in the streets, and she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house because he started going to school by bus. She could not accompany him, and then because of the fact that there were no street dogs in the city, she took to feeding the sparrows. As the years rolled by means as the years passed, we saw very less of each other. For some time, she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning, the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, the world being round, etc. This made her unhappy. Why was she unhappy? Because she could not understand English, and she could not understand all the things that were taught in the English school, and she was also unhappy because she could not help me with my lessons. She did not believe in the things they taught at the English. Underline this is very important. She did not believe in the things they taught at the English school and was distressed. What is distressed? What is distressed? Yes, she was unhappy. Yes, she was unhappy, she was distressed, she was disturbed. Why was she disturbed? She was disturbed because there was no teaching about God and there was no teaching about the scriptures. Okay, so that is why she was very unhappy. One day I announced that we were being given music lessons. The day he announced this, that they were given music lessons at school, she was very, very disturbed. To her, music had lewd associations. What do you mean by lewd? What is lewd? He says to her, Yes, vulgar. It means vulgar. For her, music had vulgar associations. Okay, you can just mark it here, because we would continue at 12 o'clock. I have another class with +2, so I need to send a link to them also, and I have to take your attendance too. So you can just mark it here. But I'm going to take your class tomorrow also. I would be taking it tomorrow because I have to do this chapter with you people. Only then I would be able to give you your assignment for the same. Okay, and assignments have to be sent to me by Thursday. So for that reason, I would be taking your class tomorrow also, and tomorrow the class would be a bit longer one for 1.5 hours. Okay, got it? So let me take your attendance. In the meantime, what you people can do, I would like to ask Sargun Kaur if she has that assignment with her, because there were 2 students and in their work I'd given them good. One name I remember. Tomorrow Rahul Singh, the class would be at 12, okay, till from 12 to 1 or 1:15, okay. I would just like to ask Sargun Kaur or Simran. There were 2 students and I'd given them good. I don't remember their names exactly. One was Sargun Kaur, definitely. If she has it with you, you can just present the screen and you can just show your note making, because there were so many mistakes which the others had done, and I'd given a remark also that note making is not to be done like this, and I told them that I would be discussing it. So I would like to show you an example how it should have been done. Okay, so I would like to ask Sargun Kaur if she's here, that she has to share. Yes, you can share the screen. Yes, Sargun, you can share. You can start presenting, and so that the others can. Just zoom it a little bit. The first page, zoom it, and the others can just see. So this is how it should have been done with proper, and just one thing, waste management, the title is to be written in capital letters and the rest is fine, excellent. Okay, so you need to give the points. Indentation should be like this. Okay, it should be presentable, it should be properly aligned. ऐसे करना है बेटा आपने, जिनको मैंने Agarwal. No, I'm just taking it. No, not like this. जिससे पूछा जाएगा वही बोलेगा बेटा. मेधा नहीं सिर्फ जवाब देना, बाकी सब ने नहीं. Please zoom the points. Sargun, zoom the points. Zoom it. Medha is present. Diya Narang. Diya, you don't. Yes, Diya is present. Nehmat, 3 roll number. Nehmat. Harnoor Kaur. Harsirat. Tarandeep Kaur. Khushmita. Arushi. Tanisha. It is visible to me. If it is not visible to you, bache, I'm going to share this. I will record this meeting. I've already recorded most of it. I would share it after editing it later on. Okay, you can just see it. Vaishnavi is here. No. Bahar. Gurleen Kaur. Vaishnavi is present. Gurleen is present. Inderjot Kaur. Anshika. Good. Manashvi. Move to the next page, Sargun. Very good. Thanks a lot. Move to the next page now. Page number 2. This is how you have to abbreviate words, and this is how a summary is to be written. Manashvi Singh is not here. Aditi. Do we have Aditi? Aditi is here. Khushi Kalia. Khushi. Sinona Singh. Sinona is not here. Yashneet Kaur. Kanika. Sinona is present also. Kanika. I cannot see Kanika. Jasmine. Suman. Do we have Suman? Suman is present. Mayank Bhagal. No, you don't have. Harsh. Harsh. You don't have. Harsh is here. Yes. Karthik. Karthik. Present. Harsh Kumar. 26 roll number. Harsh Kumar. You can zoom your screen. Monica says you can zoom your screen if you want to see more clearly. You can zoom it yourself. Okay, don't ask her to do it again and again. Those who have been marked present can leave. Anurag Singh if they want to. Yes, Anurag is here. Devraj is here. Mohik Kaler. Mohik. Present. Then Ishan Sharma. Ishan is not here. Gaurav Kumar. Present. Jaskirat. Aniket. Ayush Singhal. Raghav Goyal. Yes. Uddain Sharma. Yes, you can leave, bache. Ayush Singhal is also here. Uddain Sharma. Uddain is here? No. Arpit Shukla. Anmol. Agam. Yes. Then we have Areveer Gulati. Abhishek Yadav. Manav Singh. Ramandeep Singh. Abhishek Yadav is here. Ramandeep. Yes. Aditya Vishisht. Yes. Vishal Pratap. Aditya Singh is not here. Anmol Gupta. Pavitra. Okay, Aditya Singh is here. Fine. Pavitra present. Rahul Singh. B2. Yes. Samir Khatri. Yes. Lavnish Huda. Do we have Lavnish? No. Ansh Nayak. Lavnish is here. Ansh Nayak is also here. Shubh Karman. Okay, Anmol, I'll mark you present. Shubh Karman, mark you present. Sakshan Saini. केशव शुक्ला भी कहाँ से आ गया बेटा, मैंने नाम ही नहीं लिया आपका. सक्षम सैनी. करण थापर. हरसिमरन सिंह. खुशप्रीत सिंह. Sakshan Saini is present. Harsimran Singh present. Khushpreet Sidhu present. Adarsh and Nitin. Adarsh is present. And what about Nitin Pandey? Nitin Pandey is not here. Okay, B2 section students, you can leave if you want to. Let's move on hurriedly to D2 because I have a class at. Yes, Rahul Singh, I know you are present. Just zoom this summary part, Sargun, if you can, otherwise it's okay. Yes, good. According to your roll, not your roll numbers, but your serial numbers that I have. Okay, Akarshita, Ananya Arora. Yes, present. Anjali. Ankit Tomar. Present. Anmol Joshi. Anshul. Anmol Joshi present. Anshul present. Ashdeep Kaur present. Aryan present. Good. Divjot present. Divyansh. Dikshit is present. Geet Narula is present. Gurdit Randhawa. Gurjot Kaur. Okay, Kanika, I'll mark you present. Gurjot Kaur is present. Harnoor Sukhana. Present. Harshdeep Kaur. Harshita Rana. Harshita is present. Harshdeep Kaur is present. Okay. Ishita Jain. Ishita Jain is present. Ishita Katoch. Ishita Katoch is present. Ishmeet Kaur, Jagrit, Jaskawal. Ishmeet is present, Jaskawal is present, and Jagrit is present. Jaspreet Singh, Jaya. Jaya is present, and Jaspreet Singh is present. Okay, good, good. I've got it, Ishita. Karamjeet Huda is present. Karandeep, Kartik Sharma. Karandeep is present. Kartik Sharma. Kashish is present. Keshav is present. Okay. Kiran Chandana, अब आया बेटा आपका नाम. Kiran, the other Kiran, 31 serial number. Mehak Kaur is present, and Mehak is also present. Okay. Monica, Monu Pandey is present. Monica. Param. Monica is also present. Param. Is Param present? Parveen Kumar. Payal. Yes. Pukhraj Singh. Rajdeep Singh. Rajdeep is present. Rashan Google is present. Sanya Bhaskar. Sanya. Sarabjit Singh. Yes. Sargun Kaur is present. Shubhangi Simran Kaur. Shubhangi is present. Simran Kaur. I don't know. I cannot see Simran Kaur. Sudhir Chaudhary. Sudhir. Yes. Tanisha, Taranbir, Tushita. Tushita is present. Tanisha and Taranbir. Taranbir is present. Tanisha. Vanshika, Vasudha. Vanshika is present. Vasudha is present. Vasudha is there? Vasudha. Vinay Kumar, Vanshika. 54 serial number. Yes. Okay. Vinay Kumar. Nakul Bisht is there. Nakul Bisht to hai. Sahajpreet Kaur. Do we have Sahajpreet? Sarthak Rabra. Do we have Sarthak? And the last one is Monica BK. Yes. Okay. Sahaj is also there. Okay. Sarthak Rabra hai bache? Vasudha is also there. Vinay Kumar is also there. Okay. Vasudha, Sarthak Rabra, everybody is here. Okay, good. Vasudha and Vinay Kumar. Okay, that is all for today. Thanks a lot. And please, it is a request. Okay, Divyansh, I'll mark you present. It is a request to all of you. Whatever link I send you, please don't pass it on to anybody. Okay, if I find any student creating problems in the class, any miscreant here, I'm going to syllabus बच्चे विनय कुमार अभी कुछ नहीं है ऐसा, इतनी टेंशन मत लो, आपके एग्जाम इतनी जल्दी नहीं होते, अगर होंगे तो जितना पार्ट मैंने आपको करवाया है उसमें से ही होगा. सो डोंट टेक सो मच ऑफ स्ट्रेस. अभी तो आपका सेशन शुरू ही हुआ है बच्चे, ठीक है, इतनी टेंशन नहीं लेनी आपने सिलेबस की कि पता नहीं हमारे एग्जाम्स हो जाएंगे, क्या हो जाएगा, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा. So whatever part we cover here in the class, whatever part is sent to you, only that much part would be there. Okay. Simran Sandhu, I'll mark you present. Okay. Okay. Nitin Pandey also. ठीक है. So thanks a lot to everybody, and we'll have a class tomorrow. We'll meet tomorrow at 12. Okay, I'll send you the link 15 minutes before that, but please don't share it. Don't ever think of sharing it with anyone. Okay. Thanks a lot. Okay. Bye bye. Okay, बच्चे.